Jumping In on Manx Radio.
With Howard and Chris Kane.
Hello.
Good evening.
And welcome. Yes, you know, when you hear that music, you're in for a good time because it means it's Saturday night, 9 o'clock. No, it's not Crackerjack, but it is Jumping In, the best in modern and contemporary jazz with myself, H.
And me, Chris. Yes, welcome along to this edition of Jumpin' In. And who can believe we're on the run-up to Christmas? Well, not exactly, but it is an extra special holiday weekend, meaning we're a third of the way there. So take a moment or two to reflect on the year we all want to forget and instead enjoy an hour of some of the best modern jazz sounds around. So without sugarcoating it, what have you been hot and cross about this week, H?
Well, yes, we are looking forward, at least jumping into a new spring with Enrico. It's going to be too darn hot with Dr Lonnie and also some Harmonic Integration.
And for me, well, we assess the situation, we take a lesson while staying afloat, and to get the egg rolling by blowing our old trumpets, here's Big Heart Machine with Fanfares. Big Heart Machine there with fanfares, and as you probably gathered, that was live at the Jazz Gallery, which, as it happens, is also the name of the album. Now, I don't know about you, but the Jazz Gallery is not a New York club that I've been to, established back in 1995 by the late great Roy Hargrove with two other partners. The club issues the Jazz Club Norm basement setting for 5th floor at 160 Broadway, where it's received numerous awards for its adventurous programming. Saxophonist and composers Brian Croc's 18-piece ensemble. We have featured them on the show before with their studio album before their 2019 debut, that was, and this is a follow-up they released during lockdown last year, catching them live in a club environment where you can hear they're equally at home and the audience enjoying Croc's quirky compositions. And hopefully in the not-too-distant future, well, we can catch them and lots of other bands live where musicians are undoubtedly at their best.
Absolutely, and we keep our fingers crossed at some stage that might come to pass. Although, interestingly, we were talking to Tommy Smith for our Tommy Smith special the other day, and he said towards the end of the conversation he didn't think he'd be playing in Europe any time again soon. It wasn't so much lockdown, I think, as Brexit. But, yeah, well, fingers crossed, and maybe more about that later. We'll see how things pan out. Well, keeping it live for the time being, although sadly somewhere where live jazz will be no more. The Jazz Standard, which has unfortunately been a victim of the pandemic, and that they've just unfortunately have gone under. Basically, it's been so long without any live jazz and live music and an income coming in that they've had to call it a day. A great shame, a wonderful place I have been, the one you've just mentioned there. I must admit, I didn't know the Jazz Gallery. Jazz Standard I have been to, and I really loved. I was hoping I could get back, but sadly it is not to be. One of their regulars who's decided to bring out an album just released now on Blue Note, Dr Lonnie Smith, has dedicated it to the Jazz Standard, Seth Aronson and the amazing staff for all their years of support and love, as well as faithful, supportive fans, he says he dedicates the album to. It's called Breathe. It's on Blue Note, and here's something that we don't often get to say on the Isle of Man. It's too darn hot. Keeping it live. Well, we're keeping it live here on Jumpin'In, of course. Sadly, no longer live at the Jazz Standard, which has gone, but that's where the album was recorded. It's called Breathe, Dr Lonnie Smith, just out on Blue Note. And great, we were just saying, it's a sort of music, you know, it's difficult not to enjoy, really. You could sit back out in a festival or in a club, as this was the case, sit back with your beer or whatever you're drinking and just tap your feet and just immerse yourself in the music. Tasteful, as he always is, never less than that. And you could probably have a bop if you wanted to as well. It was, of course, too darn hot. We live in hope. Dr Lonnie on the Hammond organ as ever. Jonathan Kreisberg guitar. Jonathan Blake at the drums as well. And we also have the sort of sax section, or to at least there's reeds or whatever. There's John Ellis on a tenor sax. Stan Jones on the trumpet. Jason Marshall on that one on baritone, and Kevin Eubanks' brother, on the bone.
Yes, we were saying memories of Lonnie Liston Smith as he used to be. The last time we saw him live was in fact at Brecon Jazz Festival many years ago. people chatting, great groove in the background, pint of Spa ale in hand, and possibly a Red Dragon
We live in hope.
sausage as well.
We do
live in hope. Well, an album I have been listening to recently, which again is New York-based, but is pianist Theo Hill, who has honed his skills over the last 10 years ago, perhaps mainly as a sideman with names such as Wallace Roney, Roy Ayers, and as you just mentioned, Jeff Tain Watts, among many others. He made his debut in a jam session in Smalls, age 16, the club that is obviously not in his Smalls, and he has been a regular on the New York scene ever since 1998. Let's hear a track from his latest album, Reality Check. Here's Blue Poles. Yes, lovely stuff indeed. Taken from last year's reality check, his fourth album as a leader. That was pianist Theo Hill with his quartet and Blue Poles. And as H was just saying, it's another name he wasn't familiar with, and I admit me too until I came past the album. But Theo is perhaps best known for holding down the seat of the piano seat for the Mingus Big Band for the last few years. But he has maintained his regular trio with Rashaan Carter on bass and Mark Whitfield Jr. on the drums. And for this fourth album, he's added Blue Note Rising Star Vibes man Joel Ross, who I think, as you heard, provides a suitable sparring partner for Hill. He also adds a few colours with his Fender Rhodes and synth on this album. Reality Check's a disc I think worth checking out. Out now on the Positone label.
And it all links in together. We've been talking about the Jazz Standard and jazz clubs. The Jazz Gallery we mentioned earlier on still is going. Not one we know, but hopefully we'll get a chance to check out. Jazz
and Smalls
Standard
is still going.
Smalls still going at Happily. Village Vanguard, of course. And you were mentioning the Jazz Standard and, of course, the Mingus Big Band. They were regulars there for years, I think. I know our Luxembourg colleague was a great fan of going to see the Mingus Big Band there, and I can't say I blame him. What a wonderful thing it would be. You're listening to Jumpin'In. Chris and H with you, of course, as ever on a Saturday night. All the best sounds around. Just having a review of some new music, kicking around no particular theme this week, but don't forget, in weeks coming up, we'll be bringing you our Tommy Smith special. Having a chat with the man himself and some of the, well, who hasn't he played with, frankly? Starting out with Gary Burton, and then it's difficult to go up from Gary Burton in many ways, isn't it? But I think he managed it in many ways because he played with pretty much anyone you care to mention who's worth
Chick
mentioning.
Corea introduced him to Gary Burton, and as he was saying to us, Tommy, that Chick introduced him to Gary but didn't want him in his own band, so maybe...
And also said, you can join my band, big enough to leave college, which he said, bearing in mind he was the sort of, not the president, but he was one of the sort of founding members on the board. It was a case of, yeah, you can come and play my band, but you're going to have to jack in your college course, which seemed a bit odd. Anyway, that will be coming up in some weeks to come. Certainly when we're a little bit out of lockdown, we'll get that to you. Great chat we had with
Joy
Tommy.
Lovano as well, of course.
And also we'll be having a chat, or we have had a chat with Joe Lovano, that is a can. We'll be talking about his music and, of course, his latest trio Tapestry and some of his earlier sounds as well. Hopefully we'll have a whole programme about Joe and Joe's music, and not forgetting as well Jane Ira Bloom. We played her new album out with the bassist Mark Elias, which is very enjoyable, and we'll be having some of her conversation as well in the weeks to come. All that coming up here on Jumpin'In, the best modern jazz programme this side of the Atlantic, he says modestly. You don't have to go that far, though. You can just go across to Europe, where there's tons of jazz. Really good stuff. And, of course, we've enjoyed wonderful things around the Bruges Brussels Jazz Festival, and enjoying jazz on the continent. And one of the sax players I've seen there a few times now and really come to enjoy, Ben Sluis. I can never get his name right. Sluijs. Sluis is as good as I can get it. Numerous albums out under his own name. This is one great one on the Verf WERF label called Harmonic Integration. Ben Sluis Quartet meets Eric Vermeulen, and this is called Squawk. Ben Sluis on alto sax, Jorien van Hetzele on a tenor, Eric Vermeulen on the piano, Manole Cabras bass, and the great Marek Paterman. I've seen him a few times. Wonderful drum, always very inventive. Behind the kit there from the Verve album Harmonic Integration. The Unplayables Ben Sluis Quartet meets Eric Vermeulen. And again, wonderful stuff on the Belgian jazz scene. Hardly known outside of sort of Belgium and Europe. I've never seen him play in London. He might well have done, but I think he pretty much sort of stays round about the Belgian scene, or certainly in the European scene, where we've seen him a couple of times at the Brussels Jazz Festival, playing in a variety of settings and numerous albums under his own name, let alone where he's played as a sideman as well, and always worth checking out. Terrific stuff, and just looking just on the liner notes in this one, somewhere in between the Ben Sluis, True Nature, Flying Circles, Stones, Sea Sounds, Candy Century, Food for Free, and I think he's got a few more since that came out as well. And frankly, of the ones I've heard, none have disappointed.
Yes, and just think it would be only a month away at the May Bank holiday, the early May Bank holiday, when we would have normally been en route to Brussels Jazz, or Brew Jazz, as it is now. Now, it is going to happen. They're calling it a balcony festival this year, so for limited numbers of outdoor people, they can watch a band playing at various balconies around the city, rather than big bandstands. And of course it will be live streamed, so you will be able to jump online, but it's not quite the same experience, sadly. Now, of course, regular listeners to the show will know that we do occasionally do shows that focus on music from one particular country, but we've never done a South American show, or perhaps more specifically, given the size of the continent, an Argentinian show. Not without its leading lights in the jazz scene, of course. Pianist and composer Lalo Schifrin, perhaps best known for the theme to Mission Impossible. Tenor man Gato Barbieri, pianist and composer Guillermo Klein, tango man Astor Piazzolla, bandoneon player Dina Saluzzi, and pianist Leo Genovese are perhaps some of the best examples. But a pairing which recently came to my attention are saxophonist Rodrigo Dominguez and trumpeter Valentin Garvey. Here's Los Homigobres.
Lovely stuff. Yeah, a bit of a three-for there for you. So a bit of Dan Arneson Trio to finish off from his album Norwegian Song, a track called Balladone. Before that, we had New Spring at the Village Vanguard with Enrico Piernunzi, Don McCaslin, tenor sax, Scott Colley, bass, Clarence Penn on drums. And before that...
Yes, I mean, Piernunzi, he puts so many albums out. Before that, we had Los Homengres en Vivo and ECEM, not ECM, ECEM. Saxophonist Rodrigo Dominguez, trumpeter Valentin Garvey. They both known each other for over 20 years, both hail from Argentina, but the trumpet relocated via the Royal Academy to Germany and was mainly known as a Bach player, but moved back home to Mar del Plata in Buenos Aires last year when they got together and formed the group with three young musicians for a concert at ECEM, Espacio Colectivo de Experiencias Musicales. I think it was well worth the wait. Well, that's about it for this week's show. Have a lovely, peaceful Easter, and we'll leave you with a track from Treading Water, the debut album from sax and trumpet pair, the Avgenikos brothers. The brothers met up with the other band members while they were all studying at the Sydney Conservatorium of Music in 2012, and they put together the set for the last couple of years for this release. Until next week, we'll leave you with Surely Not.
Surely Not. Go easy on those chalky eggs.
Take care.